Hi, I'm Dave Gustin. I'm the director of the School for the Future of Innovation Society, and I'd like to welcome you all to the academic year 2021 State of the School Address. Last year, when I gave this address, I started with this image, this very peaceful image, this harmonious image of 19th century America attempting to forge a harmonious relationship between the pastoral agricultural past and the coming industrial world. What one of my graduate school professors, Leo Marx, had identified as the middle landscape. Well, a whole lot has happened in this last year. So a whole lot has happened over the past year. Obviously, I've not accommodated myself to it entirely. Principal among these, perhaps, has been the emergence of severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. When I last was speaking in a forum like this by remote video at our convocation in the spring, I wrote that in the United States, just over 800,000 of our fellow Americans had been diagnosed with COVID-19, and 45,000 of them had perished. The new data, 5.8 million cases, over 180,000 deaths. Another major development over the past year has been the Black Lives Matter movement, in particular response to the murder of George Floyd, as the crescendo of an appalling history of racism and racial violence in the United States that has a toll that is similarly incomprehensible. There's also been the creation of the College of Global Futures. See this as a great opportunity for the school going forward, and I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So these are the couple things that are on my mind in the context of this talk: COVID, Black Lives Matter, the college. And the talk will be perhaps a little bit different than previously. I'll go over some things in a little less detail than I had done in previous talks. I'll add some things that I had not added, but you'll get a picture, I think, of where the school sits, what the faculty and students in the school are up to, and how we're going to be moving forward in the coming academic year. So as those of you who have been with us for any time understand, the motto of the school, "The Future is for Everyone," is deeply seated in a set of values that the faculty, staff, and students in the school have. Over the past year, we've seen some changes in the faculty. This is the first year in the 5 years of the school where we've had no new net growth in the faculty, because we've had some important departures as well as some additions. The most important addition, perhaps, that we have in the coming year is Kathleen Vogel, who is joining the school as the deputy director. We also have another important addition, Lisa Morganelli, who is joining the school as a professor of practice, and she'll be working as senior editor with issues in science and technology, which is one of ASU's partner media enterprises with the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. Among the departures that we have, Professor of Practice Greg Zachary has retired, and Associate Professor Thad Miller and Clinical Assistant Professor Britt Crow Miller have moved on to the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. And we wish all of our retiring and departing colleagues great opportunities and enjoyment in their next activities. That leaves us with 54 individual faculty members of all different types within the school. Of those 54 faculty members, we have 40 full-time equivalents, so That's because we share a number of our faculty members with other units, and some people are not full-time anyway. That 40 full-time equivalent represents also 31 tenure track faculty members. And so the remaining 23 are non-tenure eligible faculty members, clinical research, professors of practice, lecturers, and 23 and a little bit more than a half full-time equivalents in the tenure eligible categories. Of those 54, and those of you who have listened to multiple talks, multiple states of the school know that this is probably one of my favorite statistics. Of those 54 bodies in the school, we have 38 different PhD disciplines represented. We have 5 non-PhD preparations. So we nearly have as many different intellectual backgrounds represented in the school as we have members of the faculty. So for me, the School for the Future of Innovation Society is really the beating heart of inter-trans multi-post-disciplinarity at ASU. And the diversity, intellectual diversity that represents really extends across the whole host of disciplines represented in a modern research university. We have some wonderful faculty achievements over the past year that I'd just like to report briefly on. Kiki Jenkins was appointed to the Ocean Studies Board at the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. Darlene Cavalier was named a National Geographic Explorer and Fellow for her work in citizen science. Heather Ross was appointed to advise Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego on health policy matters. That appointment happened early last fall, and at a time when I think Heather thought that riding with police cars was probably the height of excitement that she would be facing in the context of that job. And things changed for her tremendously, as they changed for the city of Phoenix, the county, the state, the country, and the planet for that matter. Laura Hosman forged a partnership agreement with Peace Corps on solar spell. And there was a time shortly prior to COVID when Fahim Hussein seemed to be just about everywhere at the AAAS meeting, on CNN, at Reuters, and so on, talking about his work on the digital afterlife, which really caught fire. That was wonderful work. I want to talk just very briefly about continued growth in the research enterprise. The bottom line here is more awards, more participation, if slightly fewer expenditures in a very strange year. So here's the table comparing the recent year, fiscal 20, with the previous year, fiscal 19. In the top set of rows, the number of proposals compared for those years, both the number of proposals and the number of individuals who submitted them, awards and number of individuals, and expenditures by proposals and number of individuals. And what I really want you to notice in particular is where that red arrow is pointed to 45 individuals associated with expenditures in fiscal 2020. And if you remember, we just had 54 members of the faculty in the school. So 45 of 54 members of the faculty are involved in external research expenditures in the school. And that's a tremendous level of research intensity for the school. And the successes here in encouraging faculty participation in research and in the overall growth of the research enterprise really lies on the shoulders of our Associate Director for Research, Ira Bennett, and his staff, particularly Jennifer Crayer. So thank you, Ira and Jennifer, for these successes. Looking to our academic programs, we continue to have amazing student achievements and student outcomes, and we continue to have some slow to grow academic programs. In particular, the undergraduate and master's curricula need to reach many more students. We have, thanks to the good work of Emma Froh, a very robust undergraduate research fellowship program, the SURF program. In the spring of 2020, 19 faculty, so more than a third of our faculty, ran research projects with 52 students. Unlike most of the other undergraduate research programs across the university, we welcome students who are not our own into that. And in fact, the bulk of our students come from other units. And we also used the undergraduate research fellowship program as a way of supporting students during the COVID pandemic. We added additional research slots for summer research fellowships for students. One of the fun SURF outcomes this past year was an undergraduate student who worked with Kirk Jalbert on anti-pipeline advocacy. This student, Pratik, was an informatics major in the unit that Kirk also has a faculty appointment, computing informatics and decision systems engineering. And through work with Kirk, the student actually discovered and understood the opportunities around thinking about technology and social justice, and will be pursuing STS in graduate school. We had two of our doctoral students from the Human and Social Dimensions of Science and Technology program win university-wide awards. Gabrielle Laut won the Graduate College's Knowledge Mobilization Award for Doctoral Research in Progress. And Rajiv Gimaray took a first prize in the fall 2019 ISSR Graduate Student Poster Contest. Our students, in addition to being intellectually active, are socially active on campus. HSD student Alicia de Mesa was elected president-elect of the Chicano Latino Faculty and Staff Association. GTD student Tyler Eglin volunteered with biodesign in the midst of the COVID pandemic, where he managed the supply and packing of biodesign's COVID-19 tests that were delivered to Arizona first responders. In keeping with the deep policy roots of the policy engagement roots of the school, HSD student and MSTP alumna Catherine Ball was named a finalist for the Sea Grant John Knaus Marine Policy Fellowship. I think she is waiting for a placement there, may have already been placed. Another student, MSTP student Carol Mars, won a AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship, and she has a placement already with the Department of Defense. And then last but not least, among the students that I'll mention, Francesca La Scala, who was one of our first undergraduate students, and I had the pleasure of teaching her in ASU 101 these several years ago, completed her bachelor's degree in the spring and is participating in the accelerated MSTP program. Francesca received ASU's Moore Award, which is reserved for the highest achieving undergraduates who spend all their 8 semesters at ASU with a perfect GPA. And Francesca was also an Obama Scholar and a Public Service Academy Commitment Awardee. So congratulations again, Francesca, and I believe that she is going on to do Teach for America after she finishes her degrees. The numbers around student enrollment, as I've suggested, have not been as inspiring as they need to be. You can see here over the 5 years of the undergraduate major, we've sort of plateaued a little bit with a small dip in the current year. We are on balance more of a graduate school than we are an undergraduate school, and the growth that we see has happened mostly in some of our newly introduced graduate programs. So looking at those red arrows, you see that the Global Technology and Development Master's degree, the O being the online version, has had some substantial increase, remarkably due to the applied international development component of the online degree there, and great thanks to Nalini Shetty for managing what was a year-long university-wide process in coordinating the launch of that aspect of the degree. You can also see a new cohort of students in another online program, the Master of Science in Public Interest Technology, and then a new PhD program that we inaugurated last year in Innovation and Global Development. And those have been responsible for some of the recent growth that we have experienced. As I mentioned, last year we introduced the PhD in Innovation and Global Development that's chaired by Nestor Chetri. There's Katina Michael and the MS in Public Interest Technology. We have further growth in programs planned for the coming year or two. This year, we will be spending some effort to launch the undergraduate program online a year from now, and Associate Director for Academic Programs, Jamie Wetmore, is leading that effort. We've also submitted a proposal to plan a new Master of Science degree in Futures and Design that will be part of the MESA initiative in collaboration with the Herberger Institute for Design and the Arts. And Cynthia Celine and Ed Finn are leading that activity. We also have some new degrees in prospect. We are imagining over the course of the year that we will put together a proposal to plan a bachelor's degree in development and innovation, likely in collaboration with the School of Politics and Global Studies, and perhaps the School of Human Evolution and Social Change. We will be looking to put a proposal to plan together in conjunction with the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and perhaps the Cronkite School in a master's degree in narrative storytelling that will expand on the graduate certificate that we have in narrative nonfiction writing and publishing. We are in conversation to begin redesigning the Master of Arts in Applied Ethics and the Professions, which is a program that we inherited when the school was created, and we did not quite have the resources to continue that program. We put it in hiatus, and we're in conversation now with the Lincoln Center for Applied Ethics and perhaps the School of History, Philosophy, and Religious Studies to relaunch that at some point. And then I also hope to be able, when we succeed in hiring a faculty member focused in public engagement, to take advantage of a great deal of latent resources that we have to create a master's degree in public engagement with science, technology, and innovation. So back to our two crises and an opportunity, or perhaps three crises. This again is the SARS coronavirus 2, called a coronavirus, as you can see in this electron micrograph, because the little viral particles look a little bit like a crown with those projections sticking up off of them. That's not the most important thing that I want you to understand here. If you take away nothing more from this talk, please take away this, that during the COVID-19 pandemic, ASU is a community of care. What this means is that we are all responsible for the health and well-being, not just of ourselves, but of the rest of the people in the community. Maintain your physical distance, wear your face coverings, stay at home if you're feeling ill, wash your hands, take care of yourself. And this is not just on campus. This is wherever you are, wherever you happen to be. ASU is a community that extends beyond the campus. And as we're seeing, I think, from other universities that have attempted to go back to include students in dorms and face-to-face instruction, in addition to the sync and online modes that we also have, a lot of the challenging behavior that people engage in is not the behavior that they engage in when they're in a classroom or when they're on campus, but when they're off campus and outside the classroom. And so please remember, we're a community of care, not just at the university, but everywhere that we are and are representing ASU. So back to the virus for a second. We are a school for the future of innovation and society. We have as among our central concepts and tenets and intellectual foundations the understanding that there is a deep and important interaction between things that are scientific, things that are technological, things that we assume are natural, and things that are social. And this is also the case for this virus and this pandemic. And so this is also a different kind of representation of the COVID pandemic. And what we're really seeing when we look at a pandemic, when we look at the fact that nearly 6 million people in the United States are infected with a virus, 180,000 have succumbed to it, that the pandemic is a socio-technical phenomenon in a host of different kinds of ways. And this has been, in fact, the way that many of our faculty have responded to the pandemic. So Professor Andrew Maynard has, for a number of years, had an online video series called Risk Bites. And Andrew has deployed very effectively the video series to discussing some of the risk-related aspects of the COVID pandemic. I mentioned Heather Ross earlier in the talk. She and doctoral student Anna Muldoon have been doing great work on contact tracing and scenarios and projections for the state of Arizona. And as I said, Heather's really been on the front lines for the city of Phoenix in helping the political response and helping the political actors there understand and plan for what's going on. Brian David Johnson has been taking his futurist lens in looking forward to what a new normal might be beyond the pandemic, and thinking about with the Global Sports Institute at ASU, what happens to a lost generation of athletes who have come of age in the midst of the pandemic that has prevented them from engaging in their chosen activities. Clark Miller incorporated COVID into a series of essays that he's done, derived from Richard Scarry's Busy Town. So published a piece on A Plague Comes to Busy Town in Issues in Science and Technology. Dan Sarowitz with colleagues in Nature produced a manifesto on models serving society. This is connected to a deep brand of scholarship that Dan has engaged in over time, engaging with the role of models in climate change and in other areas of scientific inquiry. And, you know, as I think everybody realizes in the context of the pandemic, and going back to Heather's work and Heather and Anna's work as well, the role of the model here has been a incredibly challenging one for both the experts behind the models, the communicators trying to communicate what those models are about, and the political actors who have attempted, in some cases, to devise policies based on information from the models. Christy Spackman was featured in the New York Times on the challenge of eating during the pandemic. That's something I think most of us have actually experienced. Michael Bernstein is part of the CARE operative, and Michael has spent some great effort that I think has benefited anybody who's come in contact with it about helping us learn how to survive these endless Zoom meetings and webinars, and really try to take care of ourselves in the context of a world that seems both different and fraught than the world of just 9 or so months ago. So thank you, Michael, for helping us care for ourselves. And similarly, in a way, Lee Goodkin, who has a forthcoming book, a memoir on aging, and his own reflections on aging, published a wonderful piece in the Washington Post on not being a pandemic introvert and becoming a bit more of an extrovert, even when clothed behind a mask. And finally, Laura Hosman and Mary Jane Parmentier designed opportunities for evacuated Peace Corps volunteers. ASU is a very important institution for the Peace Corps. We have a number of returning Peace Corps veterans that come to particularly our MS in Global Technology and Development. As I mentioned, Laura has this wonderful partnership for Solar Spell with the Peace Corps that has just been developed. And because of the pandemic, the Peace Corps essentially evacuated its volunteers from just about every place that they were around the world, and ASU helped plan some programs for them upon their return, so it would not be, so their time would not be completely lost upon their return. So now I want to turn to the sort of second crisis, racial justice and Black Lives Matter protests. And similarly to the socio-technical aspects of COVID, this crisis also has its socio-technical aspects. It is not just a movement. It is not just based on a history and a legacy, but there are technologies like body cams, like military-grade weapons and police gear, like cell phones, and the ability of individual citizens to act as journalists that help create the broader socio-technical environment for what we are now experiencing. In the late spring, President Crow released a statement. Here are some excerpts from it about what would be the university's response to this crisis. And President Crow asked anyone and everyone to email him directly, to contact him directly with suggestions for things that the university could do to, on the one hand, confront its inadequate and troubled history, and to improve the current environment, and to plan for a future in which the aspirational aspects of ASU might be better realized. I also issued a statement shortly after President Crow's statement, emphasizing the unfinished work that is done in pursuit of racial justice and in what I would call transitions to justice, and that we all have opportunities drawing on our own skills, our own strength from those who have come before us, who have passed their work and their devotion to us, that we can each make contributions to creating a more just, more equitable, more harmonious environment at the university and in our cities and in our country. This perspective is not simply a response to the recent crisis and the recent racial violence. If we go back 5 years to the founding of the school, to the missions and goals that the faculty of the school at that time articulated, we can see again highlighted by the red arrows that issues of what we're going to end up calling justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, JEDI, were core to the concrete goals that the school laid out: to develop platforms and extend programs to include learners of all ages, all backgrounds, and all geographies, to enroll student cohorts representative of the socioeconomic and ethnic diversity of the state of Arizona and ensure undifferentiated academic outcomes, and to encourage excellence and diversity across programs by hiring at least 5 faculty members related to borderlands or innovation and equity issues. And so I'm just going to follow now with a couple of examples of how we've made progress along those 3 areas. So with respect to programs serving all learners in all geographies, one of the I think great set of activities that have developed over the first 5 years of the school is the Center for Innovation in Informal STEM Learning, directed by Ray Ostman and Paul Martin. And Ray and Paul sit at the top of an external network called the National Informal STEM Education Network, NISENet, that has connections to 700 partner institutions across the United States. And those partner institutions reach about 11 million visitors to those museums and science centers. And they're in a process with NISENet of creating a new mission statement for that organization, uniting communities across the country and building a sustainable future that is just, informed by STEM, and reflects shared values. So the work that is going forward through NISNet, and in particular also in work that Ray and Paul are doing in their grant-funded research, will be much more focused on issues of diversity and inclusion, reaching tremendous numbers of people at a great variety of institutions across the country. Second example, slightly different scale, but no less powerful. Sasha Barab is working in partnership with the Maricopa and Pinal counties to grow a culture of positive change across juvenile corrections services. And so this really is a way to look at some of the most vulnerable population, juveniles who are engaged in correctional institutions, the people who help them there, and allow them to understand how to advance their prospects through building this culture of positive change through the technologies that Sasha and his colleagues at the Center for Games and Impact develop. Another I've mentioned previously is, of course, Laura Hosman's Solar Spell, which is a way to get digital educational material to the 50% of the world who cannot access the internet. Among the conversations that I've had, particularly with the graduate student organization, as well as others, about trying to understand in a data-oriented way where we are as a university, as a school, as our academic programs, with respect to diversity, with respect to the participation of underrepresented minorities in our academic programs, as well as international diversity as well. And here you see one slice at the data over the course of the previous 4 years of enrollment in the undergraduate program, the master's program, the doctoral program, and I've also added faculty there. The gold numbers are underrepresented minority participation. The white numbers are international. What you can basically see is more or less a secular trend toward some growth, except in the faculty, where we mimic the university very broadly, and that we've managed to keep where we were in the midst of tremendous growth of the faculty. This doesn't help you yet understand where we sit in comparison, say, to that goal of the diversity within the state of Arizona or elsewhere at the university. This figure has a repeat of the diversity data from the previous figure in white, and it has a different slice of the data because there are different data sources at ASU, and there does not seem to be a comprehensive and authoritative take on this data. But this is a different data source that shows us doing perhaps a little bit better, but this is at the graduate level and not at the undergraduate level from the dashboard that the graduate college provides, where the participation of underrepresented minorities at ASU at the graduate level is now 52% at SFIS. It is 46%. So we're working with different numbers. We're trying to get at the base of it. The footer for this shows that 42% of Arizona 2018 high school graduating cohort was non-Hispanic white, so 58% was the remainder underrepresented minority, so majority minority high school graduating cohort in 2018. These numbers, again, are graduate numbers, but we're not there yet. But we are on some important trajectory, I believe. And this is one of the opportunities that the College for Global Futures, as I'll get down to it in a little bit, might provide for us with a larger platform and a larger capacity for attracting students, for interacting and engaging with students where they might be, for recruiting students from community colleges, which tend to be more diverse than our regular first-time, full-time first-year students. So we are on a positive trajectory. We don't have a good sense of the data because there are multiple data sources, and the college can be providing us an opportunity to do better than we have been doing. I also want to point out, and here is again the diversity data and the international data for our graduate programs in last academic year. And I mentioned that we had created a new doctoral program in innovation and global development. And this just is a suggestion that program design and program attention actually matter. Okay, so in the 18 students enrolled from last year and the current year in the PhD in IGD, there are 9 US citizens and 9 international students. 3 of the US citizens are US minorities. And so again, we're dealing with small numbers, as we will be in our programs, but the attention that has been put, the design of the program that has been put in a way to attract students who might not otherwise have access to doctoral programs has really been emphasized in the IGD program. Then the third element, the hiring initiative, we created a Borderlands hiring initiative that was specific to the school in reflection of a university-wide Borderlands hiring initiative. Over the time that we've had the initiative, we have hired assistant professors Alexandrina Gloro, Lindsay Smith, and Marta Burbis. They are all contributing mightily to the intellectual life of the school and to the success of the students in the school. Marta has integrated herself with Innovation Space, which is an undergraduate course that is run out of the School of Design, and she has brought her participatory action research in communities, in underserved communities in Phoenix, to Innovation Space, and she has, based on that, a fabulous idea to go forward in a new solicitation for Just Futures that the Mellon Foundation is advertising right now. Alexandrina just won her first National Science Foundation award, a pilot grant for the Smart and Connected Communities program, and Lindsay Smith recently won a career award from the National Science Foundation for her proposed study of technologies at the border. And Lindsay's career award is the first one that we've had in SFIS, and I think a real triumph. And as the name suggests, it's meant to establish her as a major scholar and teacher, because she's not allowed to buy out of classes with that award. And so she'll be in the classroom creating opportunities for students as well as doing the research with that. Those 3 hires do not complete the goal of 5 that we set, although we're perhaps on pace or a little ahead of pace. We had been searching on an equity, justice, in the future line this past academic year that got shut down because of the COVID pandemic, but we are committing 1.5 or 2 full lines to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion hiring in the coming year. The difference between the 1.5 or the 2 depends on what else is happening around in the college. And, I'll safely say that, such a hiring initiative would not be the end of emphasizing justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in faculty hiring. It would just be the beginning. Some other work that has gone on by faculty in the context and in response to JEDI issues and Black Lives Matter. Clark Miller's Weight of Light project has forthcoming its 2nd volume of speculative fiction and essays. This volume focused on how diverse communities build just energy futures. And if I have the story right, a summary essay that Clark and colleagues have here directly addresses some of the issues that have arisen in the BLM movement. Um, Jen Richter similarly has been writing and publishing. She's been guest editor, guest co-editor of a new issue of a new journal, Mapping Meaning, the journal, on life after the Anthropocene, where the authors are envisioning a future of the world. And she has, with her co-editor, have an introductory essay that situates the crises of racial injustice and the COVID pandemic in the context of the Anthropocene. Nalini Shetri has co-authored with a student and a colleague from the School of Sustainability, an article in Sustainability Journal on barriers to sustainability in poor and marginalized communities. This article by Nalini and sustainability colleagues is really just one slice of a set of scholarship that is happening more or less school-wide that pays attention to the concerns that we have at the intersection of technology and society for communities that are essentially treated unjustly, that are marginalized by those socio-technical systems. As I've mentioned, I've had some fairly intensive dialogue with representatives from the Graduate Student Organization, which hosted a pair of forums earlier in the spring. There have been some direct outcomes from that as well. For example, my attention to presenting some of the data that we do have here, the effort by some members of the GSO in conjunction with faculty member Michael Bennett to begin to look at the curriculum in the school across academic programs to help assure ourselves and intervene when necessary that appropriately diverse voices are being included in the curriculum. This talk, this State of the School address, is the first of what are 4 enlightening lunches that will happen through the fall semester that will be integrated with the doctoral colloquium that I also teach. And so the enlightening lunches this fall and as well in the spring will be focused on transitions to justice. We'll host Brian Brayboy in the next of these on the 23rd of September, and Brian will be speaking about ASU and the Havasupai. I'll spoil my next statement by saying that Kelly Larson and Michael Bennett will be talking about the JEDI Task Force at the end of October. And then Mickey Kittleson, who's a colleague from Politics and Global Studies, and Stephanie Furman from Sustainability, will be talking about a new diversity-oriented program that the American Association for the Advancement of Science is running in conjunction with universities called Sea Change, and preparing ASU to be an inaugural member of that organization with AAAS. And now here's the spoiler. As a direct consequence of previous discussions and of the crisis, Michael Bennett and Kelly Larson have agreed to lead at Chris Boone, the Dean of the College of Global Futures, behest a Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force that will encompass the interests of the College of Global Futures and the Global Futures Laboratory. As I said, Kelly and Michael will be speaking to us directly at the end of October after they've gotten their feet underneath them and a little bit of work done. I believe that they are still soliciting ideas for people who would join them on the task force. So if you are interested in participating, you can email them directly. You can email me and I'll forward it to them. The task force membership will be open to students, staff, and faculty. They do have some direct support. The student who worked with Nalini on that paper that I mentioned will be a 50% research assistant for them. Hopefully we can get them some more resources as well, but they do have the full support and commitment of the college and Global Futures Lab and the constituent schools. And the task before them is quite tremendous. People already have kinds of ideas that would flow into their mandate. They'll have to decide among things like how much triage of ideas that are already out there they're going to do, how much research and surveillance of opportunities and activities that are elsewhere they're going to do, and how much implementation they're going to be focused on. And I think it is fair to say that this is not simply an activity for the coming year, but this is an important and crucial commitment that the college and Global Futures Lab are making going forward. So thank you, Michael and Kelly, for taking on this role. And please let me know, and you all through me or directly to them, anything that we can contribute to help in this effort. So I've mentioned it now several times, and this is sort of the final stage of the talk. The fact that the School for the Future of Innovation and Society is now part of a College of Global Futures, which is itself part of a larger superstructure at ASU called the Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory. So Global Futures Lab, led by Vice Provost Peter Schlosser, is an attempt to create like I said, a superstructure at ASU, a large organization that is capable of leveraging the tools, the expertise of the vast array of transdisciplinary research, of institutes, of centers of the College of Global Futures across ASU to generate new ideas, solve problems for the future of humanity, the future of the environment, the future of the planet. It is an incredibly ambitious, audacious kind of activity. As befits its audacity, we're still trying to figure out some of the way all the lines and boxes connect, because it is new. There's not been anything even at ASU, understandably quite like it in terms of organizational structure. So I'll ask that you be patient a little bit with me in the rest of this, and perhaps be patient with Peter and Chris and the rest of the leadership as we try to figure it out. But here's a first pass at some of it. So Global Futures Lab, in Peter's articulation, has a thematic structure that goes something like this. There are 5 sort of pillars, if you will, of discovery, solutions, networks, engagement, and learning that you see at the outer ring of that shield. And those are the domains. You could perhaps think of them as a next stage evolution of the traditional research, teaching, and service roles that faculty members are expected to perform and that universities are traditionally expected to embrace. But they're updated for the kinds of tasks that Global Futures Lab has set itself to. In the center there, you'll see 3 other terms: innovation, complexity, and transformation, meant to represent the sort of intellectual thrusts of the 3 component schools within the College of Global Futures. And then in between that layer, between innovation, complexity, and transformation, and those 5 pillars, is a set of topical areas represented in focal groups or thematic groups that GFL has put together that represent faculty from across the university, thinking about these critical areas in interdisciplinary fashion. So within this thematic structure, the College of Global Futures is the pillar for the learning enterprise. And as I've said, and as you by now understand, that the School for the Future of Innovation and Society is one of 3 component schools within the college, along with the pre-existing School of Sustainability and with the newly created School of Complex Adaptive Systems. The schools are not being merged. The schools retain their own kinds of identities, and we will figure out over time, not immediately, but as we go along, what gets built at the school level, what gets built at the college level, what gets built collaboratively school to school, and so on. At the moment, what is emerging at the college level that is probably most important for students to understand is that the focus of undergraduate advising, undergraduate attention will be organized at the college level. And the graduate advising and graduate programs, their focus will remain in the respective schools where they have been. The dean of the college is Chris Boone, who has been the dean of sustainability. Here's Chris's message from the college website. I'm looking forward very much to Chris's leadership here because he is bringing, I think, what is demonstrated through the School of Sustainability as very sensitive, very student-oriented leadership to the college. The leadership structure of the college is beginning to develop in at least some modest detail. Nicole Darnall will be one of Chris's associate deans for faculty success and strategic partnerships. I'm getting a little feedback, so if somebody has their mic still on, please mute. Andrew Maynard will be associate dean of curricula and student success, and their particular portfolios represent, I think, as the college is evolving in the short term, what functions will gravitate to the college level and what functions will remain in the respective schools. The directors of the schools, I am remaining, at least for the time being, director of SFIS. Chris is remaining for the time being director of the School of Sustainability, and Manfred Labischer is the interim director of the School Complex Adaptive Systems, pending the direct information from the provost. I think we anticipate searching in the current year for new directors for the School of Sustainability and for the School of Complex Adaptive Systems. We may be engaged in a search for a successor for me in the current year or in the following year. That's not yet clear. But suffice it to say, looking across the panel here and looking at previous slides around the leadership, that we know that diversity within the Global Futures Lab and college leadership is a crucial thing for us to make progress on. One of Chris's priorities that he has articulated at the town hall that he hosted the other day is to create an important pipeline of leadership opportunities for earlier career faculty within the schools. And this is our program leadership within SFIS. Right now, we have made changes in program leadership in part because of changes that have gone on at the college, and in part because it was simply time to involve other people in program leadership. I really want to call out Jamie Wetmore's role here. For the past year, Jamie has been the interim deputy director pending Kathleen's hire, as well as the associate director for academic programs. And it really has been a pleasure to work with Jamie over the past year. He has done an incredible job with terribly difficult circumstances in the context of the pandemic, really being the point person for the school for its transition to synchronous learning mode, as well as handling the host of new degree offerings and proposals to plan and so on that we've been involved in. So Jamie, thank you so much for your service over the past year as interim deputy director, and I look forward to you're working at least as hard as Associate Director for Academic Programs as you continue there. Jamie will be joined by Mary Jane as interim faculty chairs of the undergraduate programs. Thad Miller had been chair of that program prior to his departure for UMass. Mary Jane will continue to chair the MS in Global Technology and Development. And she is another one who deserves tremendous thanks for putting an enormous amount of her effort into serving the students and the school. In addition to welcoming Kathleen Vogel as the deputy director, in that role, she will serve as an ombudsperson for student contact. If students have particular academic issues related specifically to their programs, they should first approach their program chairs. If they have any other kinds of student life issues or issues that they believe they cannot approach their chairs with, then Kathleen is the person to go to. Kathleen will also be the interim faculty chair for the Master Science and Technology Policy program, and she has a wonderful intellectual background to lead that program as well. Kiki Jenkins will be succeeding Eric Johnston as faculty chair of the Human and Social Dimensions of Science and Technology PhD program. Eric, thank you very much for the effort that you've put in, especially making sure that the HSD program is in a good financial operation and operates a bit more transparently in its allocation of resources to the doctoral students. I'm really looking forward to Kiki's leadership in the program and being able to be as attentive to the student needs as they deserve. As I mentioned before, Netra Shetri is the founding chair of the Innovation Global Development PhD program, which started last fall and admitted its second cohort of students. It started last spring and admitted its second cohort of students this fall. And Professor Katina Michael, who is chair of the brand new Master of Science in Public Interest Technology, which just started online last week. And apparently I've received from Katina some comments from students already raving about the interest and coherence of the program that they're receiving. So thank you, Katina, for the effort that you've made in putting this program together over the past year and in collecting a really marvelous subset of our faculty to teach in it. So there's the school's program leadership, the collection of associate directors and others in the school leadership is still somewhat in flux because of trying to understand what functions are going to be at the college level and what functions are going to remain at the school level. So stay tuned for more information about that. And as for me, as I mentioned, I will be continuing on at least some time as director of the school, but there in the fine print, you'll see that I have a role in the Global Futures Lab as well as Associate Vice Provost for Discovery, Engagement, and Outcomes. What this means is that I will be functioning in some parallel to Andrew and Nicole as the, without the specific title, as Associate Dean for Research within the college, and then within the broader Global Futures Laboratory, focusing on how to make sure that the research enterprise that is represented in this university-wide effort is connected at best as it can be with the College of Global Futures and the faculty, student, staff programs within the college, and developing the set of discovery, engagement, and outcomes programs in collaboration with a whole host of folks who have already been active in GFL for a while, and again, making sure that the necessary integration happens with the College of Global Futures, which is the driving element of the learning enterprise. And so to the extent that we need to connect those elements around the outer ring of Peter Schlosser's diagram, to the extent that we need to connect discovery and learning, we need to connect learning and engagement, we need to promote outcomes in all the activities that we do. A lot of that will be in my portfolio. So this is an image from the first all hands SFIS meeting that we had in the fall of 2015. We've come a long way together. I'm incredibly proud of all of you and what we've built together, the intellectual foundations of a future that is for everyone. This is probably my last State of the School address. And I just want everybody to be safe out there, forks up, masks up. Thank you all.